And live from Brussels, it's ZN Live.
Live.
That's right. We're very excited today. We have an action-packed program today, lots of guests, and this is a special issue on democracy and why you should vote in the local elections, but of course in the EU elections as well, in the regional, in any election you can vote in. You should vote, absolutely. So very excited. And I also want to say happy Easter. And if you don't have any chocolate ideas, this is a fantastic chocolate from my friend Mina. And I will talk about that later. Happy Easter. Thank you so much, Daniel. So today I am joined by Thomas, Larry, Bertrand, and Daniel. Now, Thomas is actually an expert on migration, integration, and diversity, on leadership and policy. But more importantly, he's active on projects to raise awareness of democracy. He was active on a couple of initiatives to get people to vote. And of course, this is what brings this audience together, is that we've all met through One Brew, One Vote, amongst other things, which we'll talk about briefly. We then have Bertrand, who is French, works at the Commission, and is involved in local politics and was one of the founders of One Brew, One Vote. And we have Larry from the United States, living, of course, in Brussels, and a consultant expert in business and tech, and supporting young innovators and SMEs, and also active in raising awareness of democracy. And last but not least, we have Daniel, who is one of the ZN magicians, who creates things that come to life through digital tools, and actually was instrumental in getting the One Brew, One Vote logo that you can see behind Bertrand. So a great input, and who is now involved in this new and exciting project called Vote Brussels that we're going to talk about. That was One Brew, One Vote, which is actually the organization that we're involved with, and which is part of the group of organizations that has been behind this new initiative. Now, I'm going to go to you first, Thomas, and I want to know first why you came to Brussels, and why actually you came back to Brussels, and where are you from?
All right. Well, so I think that we all have our own Brussels personality. Actually, with Vote Brussels, we made a Brussels personality test. So that's how I'll explain my life. I came here in 2006 as a Euro star, one of these young people who probably wouldn't get the great opportunities in Brussels that they, what would have been happening in their home countries. I come from the US. And then I started working on integration all across Europe. So I was kind of a Tintin. Brussels was my base, and I was running all the time out of Brussels, helping NGOs and governments all across Europe. And I then was, I got to register to vote as a non-EU citizen in 2012. I became a Belgian citizen that same year. I was able to vote in all of the other elections in 2014. And at that point, I really became a Zynica. I really feel like this is my type of Belgium, is this multicultural, multilingual Brussels. And I was thinking I was going to leave, go back to the US, but it was so dysfunctional and dull compared to Brussels that now I'm back as a Papa Smurf with my daughters, and really excited to raise them here in my little mushroom, and with all of my fun little friends that make up Brussels such a great place to live.
Thank you for the beautiful cultural metaphors and connections to the city. I can see we're going to illustrate this with a lot of AI going in. Now, one question, and I know you've answered this in great detail, and we're going to share the video about this. You're involved in Vote Brussels, and you talked about this, but I want you to give us your kind of quick answer. What makes Brussels unique as a global city, and why should people vote?
So Brussels is the most diverse city in the democratic world. Only Dubai is more diverse, but it's not democratic. But I want Brussels to be the most democratic, diverse city in the world, because you've got here 1/3 of all potential voters are international voters. Then, of course, you've got the people who've naturalized, you've got their kids, me, my kids. So in total, all of us make up 75% of this city. That's fantastic. But if 1/3 of the city who are international voters and have to proactively sign up to vote, if they don't do that, then we're actually not going to have a very responsive democracy. It'll be much easier to be elected in Brussels than anywhere else across the country, because you get seats as a city councilor or as an alderman based on the size of the population. But if a third of the population isn't voting because they're not signed up, then you can get elected as a city councilor with just a few hundred votes and as mayor with just a few thousand. No, we need actually this, Belgian, Brussels, our local communes to all represent all of us and to be responsive to all of our needs. So I'm excited for us to make the most cosmopolitan democracy in the world.
Yeah, fantastic. And for people who want to know more about this, we're going to share all the information about this. We have a website called Vote Brussels that we're launching today. It's basically a landing page, but you can already see a video where you talk about this in much more depth. But as you said, there is a democratic deficit. Now, we have a lot of elections coming up. The first ones are going to be the Belgian elections and the European elections. And after that, very important are the local elections. Now, I want to turn to Bertrand. Bertrand, you are French. So my first question is, what brought you to Brussels?
Well, thanks, Phil, and thanks the team. What brought me Brussels? Actually, Europe. As simple as this. I think if Europe wouldn't be the base or capital in Brussels, well, I wouldn't be in Brussels, probably for sure. The idea behind is that I've been always matured with European ideas, and I've been studying history, geography, political sciences, philosophy. And Europe was all around the place for me. And that was the reason why I came here in 2000, so 24 years ago, actually. And since then, I never left.
Well, 24 years, very, very, very interesting. Now, we talked about getting in the democratic deficit and getting involved in local politics. You're involved in local politics. That's why you were also active with One Brew, One Vote, which we can see behind you. So can you tell us two things? Why should people get involved in local politics, especially the international community? And what gave you the idea for getting this One Brew, One Vote project started?
Yeah, the same thing that Europe is in my heart, as many of us, of you guys, the European project. And the European project is all about actually democracy, is all about having a fair community that takes care of each and single one of us, and give us freedom to think, freedom to travel, freedom to work where else we want, freedom to raise our kids where we want, all these freedom aspects, and this is also part of the reason why I engage here in politics, in local politics, because I had this freedom as a French citizen at the beginning, and then a European citizen. I realized that this is something that this is a gift from the European developments, the European democracy. This is a Maastricht Treaty, just for us to remember the European citizenship. And it was also because here in Brussels, like elsewhere, nothing is perfect. Society, as Tom just explained, is perhaps even more complex than elsewhere in other European cities, capital, or other capitals around the world. Indeed, having as many different people living here, first in Belgium, the three languages, country with three, with three communities. And on the top, you had all these nationalities coming from all around Europe, but also the world. And you need to make it work, at least. And so this gave me the incentives to say, okay, nothing is perfect in the streets out there, in the park, right here. What can I do more than just being in the civil society? Engage myself. And as Tom said, it's relatively easy. And this is one of the beauty of Belgium, our hosting country, and Brussels community, is that people are very much open-minded. And just give it a try. Push one of the doors, in this case, of political parties. Make your choice. I'm agreeing, but others are also very good as long as they defend democracy and respect to others. So came the idea of One Brew, One Vote, and we made it all together, guys. Zeden, you had also a very important responsibility in launching and make it live. What is for One Brew, One Vote? Well, one Bruxellois, Brussels citizen needs, can and should have one vote. And I mean, this is still a fight that we are still running to have one vote at the regional level for all the region of Brussels, not only for the 19 communes, but to go a step further. And this is still a fight. So yeah, that was the reason why we developed this and why we met together and why probably we're here today to come to pursue this nice fight and dream also.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think it's very interesting that when people want to change the city around them, the commune, the local community, they can do so. And I think actually Thomas talked about this in his video, which is that the communes in Brussels have quite a lot of political power. And I think people underestimate that. I was very interested to hear the way, Thomas, you had developed this, which is basically that, you can participate and change the way the streets are organized, change things to do with the local police force, to do with all sorts of things that will affect your day-to-day. And it's far more than people really imagine. So I think it is very important, and we're particularly focused in this Vote Brussels campaign on getting people to vote in the local elections. But of course, our general message is get involved in your community. Now, Larry, you are from the US. So what brought you to Brussels? When did you come to Brussels, actually?
Well, kind of like Tom, I came here twice. The first time wasn't my choice. I had never heard of Brussels. I couldn't place Belgium on a map. And my excuse for my ignorance is that I was 9 years old and my father was transferred from New York City, where I grew up, to Brussels. So I went to a French school here. And then after graduating, my idea was to go back to the US. But after many years, I sort of made the same choice as Tom, which was that I really missed the multicultural, international, multilingual environment of Europe. Also because my family, my parents, my brother were still here in Brussels, all my friends from high school. And so that's how I came back in 1996. So it's been 27 years.
Excellent. Now, you're active in the world of innovation and SMEs, and I think this is a world that's not very known when we think about Brussels. So I'd like you to tell us very briefly, how active and exciting is the international entrepreneurial scene in Brussels, and why do you think that it's important that they are themselves more involved in shaping the city's institutions and politics?
Yes, well, I think Brussels has certain advantages that are not sufficiently recognized. When typically I always hear people in Brussels, politicians say that Brussels is the second most cosmopolitan city after Dubai. Well, I was in Dubai for COP28, and so I recognize that they have the world's tallest skyscraper, but I would argue that Brussels is more diverse in terms of nationalities. If the statistics are correct, I think 1/4 of the population here are non-Belgian European citizens, and in total, more than 1/3 of the population is not Belgian. And so that is just a tremendous resource of knowledge, of experience, of ideas, and potentially of entrepreneurship. So I think Brussels has that resource, and it's in a way a kind of a miniature version of Europe. So if you are an entrepreneur from Portugal or from Germany or from Hungary, and you want to expand outside of your home country, well, why not start in Brussels, where you can reach all of those different communities? The citizens are here, plus the embassies, the permanent representations, trade associations, and all kinds of interest groups from all over Europe and around the world are located right here. So I think that is an amazing resource that people could take advantage of, and that's why I think Brussels, through its business agency Hub Brussels, is really trying to attract entrepreneurs to come here and launch their business and expand internationally.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a very interesting and diverse hub. And in fact, you have really people from completely different horizons, but who all have their different kind of perspectives on the world. And I don't think people kind of talk about or celebrate this part of the international community enough. It's very creative. We saw a lot of these people when we were involved in TEDx Brussels, which kind of showcased how the international community was actually very well connected to Brussels, and whether that it's quite easy to connect at this global level. Now I want to come to Daniel. Daniel is Spanish from Valencia, and he is also in Brussels for some time now. So Daniel, why did you come to Brussels? When was that?
So it was 9 years ago, in 2015. I came mainly for work, but I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I came also because of the tremendous worthy value of the beer and as well comic book culture and heritage as well, because I'm a big comic book fan as well, so I pretty well know a lot of the contributions from the Belgian culture to that. And yeah, it's the typical, I have the typical story of coming here for a 4 months internship and then staying here for having a full day job or contract. So yeah, I mean, it's the typical story of many people who move to Brussels, right?
Yeah, you move here and then suddenly you just stay here, and 10 years later you think like, wait, what happened?
Yeah.
And I think the reality is that it's because people feel quite comfortable, even though the reputation and the image isn't really all that positive. I think people know more and more about Brussels, but it's still a pretty mixed image. It doesn't have the PR that the big cities have, that London, Paris, New York, whatever. And yet there's a vibrant and very interesting culture. Now, Daniel, you have been working on launching the new site for Vote Brussels. We're launching a temporary landing page right now, but at least people can start seeing what this is about. So maybe you can show us the page and tell us a little bit about what's in there. And
Yeah,
of course, we will be sharing that on our channels.
Sharing right now. Normally should show. Yeah, there it is. So yeah, here we have the vote.brussels website. I mean, the URL is as easy as that. We have a pretty straightforward landing page here with a very nice and explanatory text. We have here also the video from Thomas that you were mentioning before, Phil. I recommend everybody to watch it because I did it myself last night, and as I told to Thomas, I find it very, very interesting, full of insights. And yeah, here we have also many links to check frequently asked questions and so on, and also links here to follow the campaign through social media, as it is, for example, a Facebook page, for which, as you were saying before, I took care of designing the campaign logo on behalf of the initiative.
Yeah, and as Bertrand was saying, also giving a magic touch to the One Brew, One Vote logo, and that very colorful and heavy portable hashtag that was carried around many of the communes, if not all, where we were connecting with people involved in local politics, asking them to encourage the international community to get involved, which is really the simple message we want to. And before we go to the recommendations, I want to go back to you, Thomas, just to ask you, we have a lot of elections coming up, and just in a nutshell, what would you tell your international friend who is not that interested in voting or registering? Why do they need to go to the website? and find out more and sign up to vote, which I believe they have 2 more days to register to vote for the European election. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, so for the European elections, obviously, I would say you need to make sure that you are an active European citizen. You know, obviously, your European citizenship has given you so much to be able to come here, and now it's your chance to give back, either for the lists here in Belgium, especially if you're 16 or 17, you've got the chance to vote here, which is really unique, or in the country that you come back from. If it's about the local elections, you know, what I would say is actually most internationals are interested in what's going on in their neighborhood. They haven't voted because they haven't gotten the right information in time. And I would let them know about our numbers. You know, we're 1/3 of the city, or if you're here in Saint-Gilles, Etterbeek, Ixelles, you're half of the population. So it is our responsibility. Also, we are making such great contributions, not just in the economy, but also in politics. Like Bertrand was saying, you've got EU citizens across the political spectrum who are city councillors. We have mayors in 4 of our communes from around the world. And, you know, you need to now know your priorities, right? What do you want to change in this election? There are going to be voter aid applications you can use, and really make history with this election. There've been so many people who fought for you to have the right to vote here as a woman, as a young person, as an international. And when the international community in Brussels comes and joins in democracy here, you know, we do great things. We bring the Grand Place back to the public by getting the cars out, and we inspire people to create the piétonnier. These are just some of the things that the international community has brought here. So come on, let's do it. Signing up to vote's the easiest thing you're going to do in Belgium, and it's going to be a great way that we create a cosmopolitan democracy.
Absolutely. And you know, the other thing we have is a lot of people, or hopefully a minority of people, like to complain about things in Brussels, you know, whether it's the traffic, the weather. I guess you can't do that much about the weather. But the point is, if there is something you don't like, get involved and change it. And I think that's the thing that, you know, I would keep repeating that, especially to young people, because they have an opportunity to shape the world around us. Jesus says, hello, everybody. Happy to support this campaign. Hi, Jesus. Great to have you on board with this campaign. So now it's time for the recommendations. All right, so let's start with Bertrand. Bertrand, what is your recommendations to our viewers?
Well, it's rather ambitious, but I don't want to scare people here. But I mentioned actually one of the greatest still alive European philosopher, is one of the rare philosophers that took a European project as a real piece of work actually, and he is working it since 40-50 years. His name is Jürgen Habermas. I'm sure you heard about him, or you even read him. Indeed, he's not as easy as some others, but is, I mean, there are very different books where you can have easy access to actually. So he's talking extensively about democracy and about freedom of communicate. And also that was the second reason why I wanted to mention Habermas, because Zeden, you're working in this world of communication, linking people, helping them to make their message heard, but also defending in a sense democracy, because the freedom to communicate, the freedom to talk, the freedom to address to the people that are representing us is one of the base also of your work and of what is the European democracy. So I want to mention perhaps his latest book. I sneaked a little bit in. You can have a look. Yes, structural transformation of the public sphere and deliberative politics. So public sphere is all about Jürgen Habermas. He has been developing all this theory about public sphere. So have a look. And also my last word would be, you know, how much all this resonates with the current status of our world democracy. You know, in the US, we are all scared about November elections. And this is really about the future of democracy in this one of the oldest democracy in the world. And in the eastern part, we all know the situation in Russia and all the developments there. So again, democracy is precious. That's what we do all together. and that will be my last word. People join us. Make this democracy at global but also local level in our areas, in our quartier in Brussels. Defend it and join us to help us to make people conscious of it and engage and register for the October elections. Thanks a lot.
Fantastic. Daniel, what are your recommendations for us?
So actually, I'm going to take the last thing that Bertrand said about my first recommendation will be that if you can, please register. I already did. And actually, I did it mainly because, I cannot vote from my city, my original city from Valencia. I mean, I can vote for the region of Valencia and I can vote for the national elections in Spain, but not in a local level because when I changed my census to Brussels, they consider like, okay, you're not an active citizen of Valencia anymore, so of course you are not eligible to vote. But because I have now the opportunity to be more active as a citizen through politics and voting here in the Excel commune, where I am. I wanted to take the opportunity to do it because I'm quite interested in local politics. Then my main recommendation would be actually taking back from my personal interest about Brussels. I mean, apart from beer and comic books. One thing I really like from Brussels is all these hidden gems that you find out time to time. I mean, this city is full of them. And actually, one that I discovered quite recently is the Migrati Museum Migration. It's a museum that is quite close to the Isère metro station through the canal area. It's a quite interesting museum because as we are talking here about diversity, the diversity of the international community that we are here, so we need to know, it's interesting to know a little bit about the history of migration in Brussels and in Belgium. And actually, this museum gives you very good background history about what has been the different migration waves that Belgium received, how in terms of laws they were regulated and so on. It's very interesting. Also, they have an interactive map in which you can see commune by commune what is the composition of the international community that it lives here in Brussels. So, you are here from Brussels, or you are going to pass by. That's totally my recommendation.
Fantastic. So, Thomas, you know something about migration, but tell us what your recommendations are for this week.
Well, so I'm basically pulling back the screen so you can understand what we've designed in the Vote Brussels campaign. Like right now, what we're doing is looking for volunteers. You contact us by email or sign up on our Facebook, and we want people to invite us to present to their friends, their families, their neighbors, their colleagues. We want to do the voting box in public squares and markets, even walking down your street or your block. And we want to do stuff on social media. Well, why is that? So the first recommendation is how. This is a book. So this is called Get Out the Vote, How to Increase Voter Turnout by Green and Garber. This is my researcher background. They have summarized all of the most effective experimental research on what really works to get out the vote among everybody, among immigrants, among non-immigrants. And they summarize really for practitioners how you can translate this research into practice. What are the things that you can do face-to-face, door-to-door, that will really convince people to vote? And the second thing I want to recommend is really, why are we doing all of this? And it's a podcast that I was just able to join thanks to the Migration Policy Group that actually initiated the Vote Brussels campaign back in 2018. It's called the New Europeans Initiative, Changing the Table. And here I'm talking with the leader of Diaspora Vote, an initiative for the European elections that is trying to reach out to 15% of the EU population that are first or second generation or are mobile citizens. And we really talk about what's at stake in the European elections and in diverse cities like Brussels, and why we all are so motivated for the change that a diverse Brussels and Europe can bring.
Thank you very much. Now, Larry, what are your recommendations, or your recommendation for our listeners, viewers?
Yes. So earlier this week, I attended a conference in Paris called Change Now, and it combines two of my interests, innovation and entrepreneurship, and one of my big concerns, which is climate change. So this is one of the biggest conferences on sustainability and the energy and ecological transition. So it brings together thousands of participants from all over Europe and the world, with all kinds of panel discussions and keynote speakers, and also an exhibition area with hundreds of innovative solutions, ranging from recycling plastic, capturing plastic from rivers, just to mention a couple of Belgian startups. So there is one called CycloCure, which basically repairs and reconditions scooters, these shared scooters that we see everywhere on the streets and which often have a very short lifetime. So I think it's very important for what they call micro-mobility. Another Belgian Brussels startup called Shipperize, which helps companies to invest in their inventory. There's one called Biodiversity, which is trying to save the bee population. So just, many more than you can possibly visit and discover and learn about in those 3 days. But it's an annual event, so look forward to it the next year. And for those who missed it, you can go to their website, and some of the sessions are being sort of rebroadcast. You can watch them online, and I think you can also look at all the list of exhibitors and participants. So a really great event and very important in this tough, difficult time of climate change and all its impacts.
Thank you. And I think it's very important now, because in the coming weeks and months, we're going to have a lot of events talking about the election, getting people together. So I would strongly recommend people to just go out there, meet people, talk to them, ask questions, get involved. That's the main message, which is to get involved. And my first shout out is actually for an organization that we've been talking to called Restless Brussels. This is the brainchild of Tom Moylan. In fact, he was hosting, I think, the webinar where you talked about the election, Thomas. So they've done some great work. They do a lot of events in different places all around Brussels. So I would strongly recommend to check out their activities. This is also another one which I didn't put on the list, which is Beer and Politics, which is also a networking event which will be talking about elections. We are actually going to be hosting one of their events in April. My second recommendation is actually a book which is completely unrelated to this topic, but it's a classic, Anna Karenina, and it's basically a very good book. It's very long, and it's fantastic. I mean, I would probably say maybe you should read War and Peace, and then when you're finished, you can move on to Anna Karenina. The characters, the discussions, the philosophical questions, the psychological insights are phenomenal. So it's never too old, and it's fantastic. And my final recommendation, of course, because we're going into Easter, is chocolate. This is a chocolate egg from my very good friend Mina, who has a chocolate shop. I think I've put the link. Go and get chocolate eggs. It's good for you. And basically share the chocolate, share the love. So with that, that's all we have time for. Have a fantastic Easter weekend. Enjoy a restful holiday next Monday. Go around, eat the best chocolates in the world, which you find, of course, here. And we will see you all online. Have a fantastic weekend. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Viva democracy.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.